The U.S. Supreme Court ruling on Monday that would allow the Trump administration to resume dismantling the U.S. Department of Education. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also talk with Houston Public Media reporter Sarah Grunau, who joins us to discuss the recent string of deaths at the Harris County Jail.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, there's a new exhibition at the Menil Drawing Institute. We'll learn more from Associate Curator Kelly Montana and Houston artist Jillian Conrad.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, questions, and concerns. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Russia does not appear to be rattled by U.S. threats of economic penalties and weapons assistance to Ukraine. The Russian military is continuing its assault. Meanwhile, President Trump's vexed the Russian leader Vladimir Putin is not committing to a ceasefire deal with Ukraine.
I'm not done with him, but I'm disappointed in him. So we had a deal done 4 times, and then you go home and you see he just attacked a nursing home or something in Kiev. I said, what the hell was that all about?
President Trump in an exclusive phone interview with the BBC. Trump also talked about NATO. He says a military alliance is no longer obsolete now that they are, quote, paying their own bills. Trump's expected to make a second state visit to the UK this September. The Supreme Court has ruled the administration may continue its efforts to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. President Trump on social media says the ruling will facilitate returning the functions to states. Here's NPR's Corey Turner.
The court reversed a lower court order that had blocked the administration from firing some 1,400 department workers. Those layoffs were part of President Trump's stated goal of closing the Education Department. The ruling from the court's conservative majority came with no explanation. In a blistering dissent, liberal Justice Sonia Sotomayor called it indefensible, while President Trump hailed it as a major victory for parents and students. Plaintiffs had initially gotten an injunction from a federal judge by arguing a president cannot close a department created by Congress. Yesterday's ruling allows the dismantling of the department to resume before the lower courts have decided if it is legal. Corey Turner, NPR News.
Some 24 states and the District of Columbia have sued the Trump administration. They want the White House to release billions in frozen education funding. Tributes abound today for the legendary runner Vajra Singh, believed to be the world's oldest marathon runner. He died yesterday. He was 114 years old. Indian authorities say Singh passed away from injuries sustained in a hit-and-run incident. Singh was featured in multiple videos and documentaries as an example that one's never too old to start over. He'd lost loved ones, struggled with depression, left India to live with family in the UK, then took up running. And did he ever? At the age of 89, he ran his first marathon in London. At 100 in Toronto, he became the first centenarian to complete a marathon. A year later, Singh became the oldest torchbearer of the 2012 London Olympics. He used his platform to promote charities. One of his secrets to longevity. Singh advising in this documentary by the UK's Redbridge Museum, don't eat too much and sleep better. It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. Democratic State Senator Nathan Johnson of Dallas has announced he's running for Texas Attorney General. Johnson was first elected to the Senate in 2018 by defeating a conservative Republican incumbent, Don Huffines. He serves as the chair of the Senate Jurisprudence Committee. Johnson is the first major Democrat in a field that already includes Republican state senators Joan Huffman and Mays Middleton. Incumbent Republican Attorney General Ken Paxton is ineligible to run again, as he's challenging incumbent Senator John Cornyn for the Republican nomination for the U.S. Senate. Local forecasters have their eyes on what could be the first named storm to enter the Gulf this hurricane season. Although it's still very early, there's a cluster of thunderstorms off the east coast of Florida that has caught the attention of the National Hurricane Center. The system is expected to cross Florida and make its way into the Gulf. Having said that, Houston is on the outer edges right now in terms of the possibilities for where it could go, with a higher likelihood targeting Louisiana. The strength of the possible storm is still an open question as well, but forecasters are now giving it a 40% chance of developing. If it does impact us, it will likely be towards the end of the week. We'll continue to monitor that for you here at News 88.7. Taking a look at sports, baseball's All-Star Game is tonight. First pitch is at 7 o'clock from Atlanta's Truist Park. And your look at weather, mostly sunny with a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms this afternoon, a high of 94, feeling like 107. Mostly clear tonight, 77 the low with a slight chance for showers. Right now, it's partly cloudy, 87 degrees on the UH campus. Get the whole story. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org for more news and information. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, which monitors safe driving habits to determine a personalized rate at progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manoose, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
We're back. We are. Hello, Houston. You know, before we were starting the show, if you watch on YouTube, you can catch us before actually the show goes on the air interacting. You don't really hear what we're saying, but if you were watching, I'll let you know. We're just talking about teams and people you work with that do you always get along with them? And you hear these stories. You hear now rumors about the Golden Girls. And did they all really get along? What was going on there? And we were just talking about how fortunate we are that the three of us actually do get along.
Yeah.
You know, it's not one of those media bromances. We're actually all friendly.
And that we talk to each other outside of
And
the
Ernie's
studio.
gone a lot. That helps.
Yeah, and that, yeah, we like you because you leave for a while.
I take a lot of vacation, but only during the summer. I was thinking about that this morning getting ready, is that I have a lot of time off this summer. Eventually, I'm going to be back to 5 days a week, every day.
Oh, my. And in the studio.
In studio working it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so we'll be on a great show for you today. A lot to go over, a lot of interesting, important things. And even, did we want to go to you first, Celeste, or do you want me to start off
we
with
have a
Frank?
quick update from...
It's a positive.
Well, you know,
hopefully.
we're looking at these numbers. We have a quick update from Central Texas, and the number of people missing in the Kerrville area due to the Hill Country floods has been reduced to 97. And that was from Governor Abbott, said that during a news conference yesterday, Monday. That number is significantly lower than the 161 missing people that Kerr County officials reported on Thursday morning at a press conference. And it isn't immediately clear why the figures have changed so much. We know that Governor Abbott and other officials have suggested how difficult it has been to pin down these numbers, and it's because, you know, the campers, residents, people who were registered through the RV parks or hotels are much easier to account for, he said. Others may have been reported missing by friends or family members. And I do want to give one last update. The number of people killed or, that were lost remains at 106 in Kerr County. And that is according to local officials' most recent update on Sunday.
That's the point that I wanted to make, is that it's not that the number missing went down, but the number of casualties went up, which is what makes it a hopefully positive story. It's that the same number, it's gone up a little in death, in the death toll, but the missing has gone down significantly.
The closure,
and that's a good
closure.
sign. Yeah. So
Yes.
hopefully more of them were identified or located and maybe weren't there, or the numbers were inflated to begin with. Whatever, it's going in a right direction, we hope.
And that's the thing, and we'll get to weather in a second, but it's one of those things where, we're going to continue to monitor these numbers. We're going to continue to stand in solidarity with our fellow Texans right here on Hello Houston. And if you want more information about this, you can head to our website at houstonpublicmedia.org, and we will continue to make sure that we have the latest information for you all.
Yeah, and remember throughout the show, if you have anything you want to contribute or questions or opinions you want to share, give us a call, 713-440-8870. I was just walking by one of the TVs, and the headlines on it, Frank, was that they are resuming the search now in Kerrville because I guess the weather has passed.
Well, they've gotten a break on the rain. There's
Yeah.
still a lot of flood watches and flood warnings of some of the rivers out there. Frio's been high, Valde's been high. So it's still a bit of a mess, but it is a little better. As far as the big weather story coming out is this disturbance off of Florida, off the East Coast. It may develop into something once it gets into the Gulf. I looked at the water temperatures; they're 86, 88 degrees, which is all you need is 80. So we're certainly there as far as the temperatures being right, and it's fairly calm as far as wind. So we might see something develop.
Explain what you mean about the temperature of the water, why that's important.
That's the fuel. That's the warm water evaporates, warm air and rises, and that's what creates the fuel for the thunderstorms and the showers.
The weekend of July 4th, so not this weekend, but the last weekend, we were in Galveston and we were swimming, and the water was so warm.
Yeah.
And it was.
Now it's shallow, so it's going to be warmer in
Okay.
a shallow space. In fact, it's in the upper 80s if you go along the coast. Then you get offshore, you get down to about 86. But it's not only has to be that warm, it has to be that warm about 150 feet deep.
Okay.
So you have to have at least 80 degrees, 150 feet deep, because as the storm is pulling, swirling around, it's going to be pulling water upward.
Mm-hmm.
And if it pulls up cold water, then it's going to kill itself, right? That's why you don't have storms off the coast of California. It's too cold. But if it pulls up more warm water, then it just continues to have more fuel. So the conditions are right for something to form. Regardless, I think it's going to be a really wet weekend in Louisiana, and we may get some of that moving our way. Right now, we're just going to have to play it by ear and watch and see what happens.
And we will as well continue to keep you updated with, can I say, our chief in charge of weather?
Staff of one.
Our weather department is sitting next to us.
Weather department is right here on Hello Houston, and so we will have the latest.
I feel like I went through Doge cuts.
Yeah, hey,
There
Frank,
used
remember?
to be 47 of us.
Yeah,
Now
we
it's
used to have a
just me.
department. Anyway, as our weather department wraps that up, we'll move into the headlines of the day with our news department, Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
The U.S. Supreme Court ruled on Monday it would allow the Trump administration to resume dismantling the U.S. Department of Education. The court stayed a preliminary injunction issued in May by a federal judge in Massachusetts. That injunction had directed the administration to stop gutting the department and to reinstate many of the nearly 1,400 workers the government had laid off. Monday's ruling is not the final word, as the case continues to work its way through the lower courts. In a press release, U.S. Education Secretary Linda McMahon said, quote, "While today's ruling is a significant win for students and families, it is a shame that the highest court in the land had to step in to allow President Trump to advance the reforms Americans elected him to deliver, using the authorities granted to him by the U.S. Constitution." We want to hear from you. Are you in favor of this ruling? Should the Department of Education go away completely? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Joining us to actually talk about this topic, we have Jackie Anderson, who is the Houston Federation of Teachers President. Jackie, welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Good morning.
I guess we would start right off with your reaction to what Linda McMahon said. Do you have a reaction to her statement about how this ruling is a significant win for students and families?
Well, I disagree wholeheartedly. It is an absolute loss for students and families, and the news is quite devastating to those of us who appreciate the work that our public school teachers do.
I do want to clarify one thing in the story, and help me if I get this wrong, Jackie. What actually the Supreme Court decided was that the policy can stay in place that the executive branch put out while it moves through the lower court system. So it's not really ruling that they can dismantle, but they're allowing the dismantling to continue while they await further orders from the court. The problem, as I understand it, that folks like you are concerned with is while that dismantling is taking place, should the courts come back and say that it is not legal to do, they've already done the damage. It's already been torn apart.
Absolutely. When the department was already facing mounds and mounds of work that they could not get out with the number of employees that they already had. We ourselves had sent in serious complaints or concerns from parents about things that were happening in our public schools as they related to special education and other issues in our schools here in HISD. And we were constantly being told that it was on someone's desk to be handled at some point in time when. And now what happens to all of those concerns that are going to be unmanaged or unhandled because there won't be any staff? Who is going to take care of the special ed services and make sure that students' rights are not being violated? And so we are very devastated by this news because once this happens, as you've said, to come back, it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late. And how our family is going to be left feeling that they don't have any recourse now.
You know, Jackie, can you elaborate a little bit more? You said specifically, you talk about special education, but can you give us an example of other programs that teachers and parents here in the Houston area will feel the effects, direct effects from the dismantling of the Department of Education?
Well, as another example would be any civil rights violations that our students are feeling. You know, when HISD was first taken over, we felt that it was a violation of our civil rights. We did not have representation. And so we filed complaints and reached out to our legislators and to the Department of Education. Parents filed about their students not receiving ESL services properly, SPED services. And those complaints were placed on someone's desk at the Department of Education, and they still had not been addressed. Even cases of age discrimination, race discrimination, and those things that were brought to our attention through our school system teachers, specifically, those things were filed with the Department of Education, and they have been placed on someone's desk. And now they will probably be pushed into the trash can, never to be heard again.
Jackie, President Trump says that what he's trying to do here is take all of what you're saying and put it on the shoulders of the state. So it sounds to me like you think the state is going to fail in actually providing this. Do you not trust the state of Texas to pick up the slack?
I don't know if I would use the word not trust them, but here again, we have had a governor here in the state of Texas with a $38 billion surplus at one time, and he refused to give a dime to public education for teacher raises and to our students because he held a voucher bill, a voucher scam over our heads and refused to assist us when we were hemorrhaging. And he kept that money until he got the vouchers passed. And now in HISD, even when the legislature's session allowed for teachers to have a raise, our school district is saying they're not going to give that full raise to the teachers. So here we are being told that the state is going to be in charge, but the state hasn't actually been fair with us. I'll use the word fair. In the past. So I don't know how we can put a lot of faith in the state managing things for us in a fair manner, a manner that we feel is fair.
Mm-hmm. Jackie, you mentioned that things sat on the desks and there was concerns with the Department of Education being able to equip and do what they needed to do. And as I'm understanding it, the Department of Education was kind of overseeing what happened in different states so that there was equity across the board and that funds were moving in the right direction where they needed to go. If you had the ability, if you were given the keys to the kingdom, as they say, and could have stepped in to revamp what was going on at the Department of Education, what direction would you have gone as opposed to moving it into state control? Would you have done it differently, and how would you have done it?
Well, maybe some states could handle being given that full responsibility of educating their students, but we know where Texas is in that hierarchy of educated students, and so I definitely would not have moved that role to the state of Texas. Now, some states maybe that's fine. I would like to have seen, if I had the keys to the kingdom, more people dedicated to the states that needed additional support. Everybody, being a SPED teacher, having a special education background, you know that everybody doesn't need the same thing at the same time. So what states needed to do, especially those at the bottom of the totem pole providing services, maybe needed more people at the Department of Education overseeing their service. And definitely it should not be left to the state, because TEA here in the state of Texas has been tapped on the hand for not providing the services they should have been providing, and making sure that services were equitable and things were done correctly in the state of Texas. So I definitely would not be giving Texas that role.
Yeah, well, as Ernie points out, timing is everything. So I don't know how it's going to play out, but this has to eventually go to Congress to actually dismantle the department, and it's going to take 60 votes in the Senate. And the Republicans don't have the 60. So I guess you're going to get on the horn and start making some noise.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely, we will. We will be writing, trying to have meetings with our legislators to make sure that they put a stop to this.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely.
And just to clarify that the question before the courts is, does the executive branch have the right to disassemble an organization that was put into law by the congressional level? And so that's what's being looked at the lower levels. If, in fact, they rule in favor of the executive branch being able to do this, I don't even know if it needs a vote in Congress.
Well, I guess that we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Jackie, thank you very much for your thoughts on this.
Jackie Anderson is
welcome.
The Houston Federation of Teachers president.
Moving on to our next story of the day. And also, if you have thoughts and comments about what we just talked about, please feel free to give us a call at 713-440-8870. You can text us also at that number or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. This is a developing story that a lot will still come from it, and we'll be continuing to watch what happens in the court system. Speaking of justice and courts in our nation, the Justice Department and the FBI say they have found no evidence that disgraced financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein had a client list. I'm sure you've heard this in the news. Yes, Celeste?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
The conclusions are included in a 2-page memo outlining an exhaustive review, quote unquote, the department conducted of the Epstein file in its possession. The memo also states that after a, quote, thorough investigation, the FBI found that Epstein died by suicide. The findings contradicted past statements from Attorney General Pam Bondi and about the alleged list of the Epstein clients, which she had claimed was, depending on how you interpret what she said, on her desk. Now the outcry. CNN reported Friday that the Deputy FBI Director, Dan Bongino, has told people he is considering resigning amid a major clash between the FBI and the Department of Justice over the fallout from the release of the memo, which concluded that, as we said, there was no Epstein client list, or was he murdered? They said neither of those things happened. Bongino did not show up for work on Friday, but did then report for work yesterday, it's being reported. On Saturday, President Trump offered a defense of Attorney General by saying that, she's doing a fantastic job in her role. So what do you all think? What do you think about this whole
what do
Epstein
we
case? The
think?
cover-upper, is there nothing there? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Celeste, do you have an opinion
I
on
was going to
this?
say, this isn't necessarily an opinion. I think it's just stating the obvious. I mean, there really are only two options here. Either there is absolutely nothing, there's no scandalous list, and Attorney General Pam Bondi and the president completely misled people, pushing these conspiracy theories that there was this long list of very powerful people and that he was going, if elected,
Democrats,
that he was going to, there was a smoke and gun there. And then, or the other option is there is a scandal and it's being covered up by the Trump administration.
Yeah, and it's splitting the MAGA base because MAGA really bought into this conspiracy. You're telling us that there are these Democrat child predators, pedophiles that are sex trafficking, and now you have the power, thanks to us, to give us that list, and you're saying there's no list?
Let me just clarify one thing.
What?
In defense of MAGA, they did also say Republicans were involved in it. They didn't think it was just Democrats. They thought there were also, it was that
there
whole
was a
swamp.
list
It
of
was all
Hollywood.
these-
There was a list.
Right.
There
It
was a
was
list of Hollywood celebrities, of all of these people. Yeah, know, on the left, in the middle, on the right, wherever you were coming at, there was a list.
And thanks to the
wanted to see
statements that Trump made, he was going to be the savior that was going to come in and expose all this and shine the light into the corners, be it Democrats or Republicans. He was going to take them all out. They were no good. Now he says, why are you people still
Bondi had the
concerned
file on her
with this?
desk. I have the file on my desk. Oh, it wasn't a file. It was a memo. Well, then show us the memo.
Yeah.
What
She
the
said
hell did
she-
you have on your desk? Because you can't keep changing your mind here. And
It was a question about the list, and her response, she claims, was about the file on the entire
Well, then
case.
show us that.
And now she says, after an exhaustive review of it, there were no names, there were no flight logs, and that then Trump, if I'm following the timeline correctly, now is leading to the idea that it was the Democrats that were in power that created this false list.
Right.
And that
From
what
Obama all the way back to Obama.
What might come out leading people to believe that if certain names are on there, they can say, oh, that was put on there by these evil Democrats.
I think that, Attorney General Pam Bondi might absolutely be saying 100% the truth right now. And she may say, we have looked over this information and there's nothing.
Then
but
show us the information you looked over.
Show us the information you looked over, number one. And number two, then it should have also been spoken about it during the election in the same regard that they're speaking of it now. Well, it's not really that big of a deal. Let's just move on. Nothing to see here. It was used as a carrot for votes.
And the MAGA base feels like they got conned. If there's really nothing there, then it was a con job. If there is something there, there's a cover-up, as you said.
And I think that regardless, obviously the president is standing by the attorney general, and this will test his base. And that it'll test it not necessarily that they are going to not vote Republican or support the Republican Party. However, I do think they will now have a little bit more of a skeptical view, essentially, of saying, well, wait a minute. Now we have something that we felt like you have misled us on.
There's a call, but one quick point. I hope you saw that all the cameras that were following Jeffrey Epstein through the jail he was in, only one actually recorded anything. The cameras were live, but the one that recorded him didn't record him. So there's no recording of him being led into his cell.
I want to throw out two more things in this story, and then we'll grab some calls. Maxwell and Epstein both were, Epstein was until he died, in custody for these crimes. There are lists of victims of these crimes. It seems inconceivable that Epstein could have done all of this himself.
That's an excellent point.
So who were the perpetrators of these crimes? Right. On top of that, podcasters from the right who were saying we need to investigate this as recently as this weekend seem to have gotten some phone calls from Trump over the weekend, and then on Monday came out to say, you know what, we're going to move on from this topic.
Yeah, the woman, she wants She wants to testify.
Yeah.
She wants to talk.
Right.
His right-hand woman that was sort of his wingman, so to speak.
Is this
Maxine.
Ghislaine.
Maxwell.
I can never say her last name right.
I can't say her first name. Maxwell is her last name.
Okay.
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine.
Okay.
Somebody help us. Derek
What's
does
Derek?
want to say
Derek,
something.
what to say?
Derek is calling us from West Houston. It's 713-440-8870. Derek, what's on your mind?
Hey there, guys. Thanks for talking about this really important topic. So my name is Derek Rose. I've been an independent journalist in Houston for the last 15 years, and I made a documentary about Jeffrey Epstein back in 2018 called Bringing Down Jeffrey Epstein. I've been enjoying the MAGA Civil War because I'm not a MAGA guy, so I'm sort of enjoying what's happening. But I just wanted to make it clear because the main reason people are concerned is because, as was mentioned, both Democrats and Republicans, including Donald Trump, were associated with Epstein going back to the 80s. Bill Clinton flew on the plane, 27 times. So I think the concern here is that whether it's a Trump cover-up or, Democratic cover-up, that we're never really going to know the truth of who those perpetrators were you guys were just talking about. Epstein was facing time for trafficking young girls, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for that, but none of the actual people who were receiving the girls have been found guilty. There's connections from people like Leslie Wexner, who is the owner of the Limited Brands, who is very close to Jeffrey Epstein and sold him his house in New York City. There's a lot of people who haven't been questioned or brought in, or even interviewed. And so I think that's sort of why the public is looking at this and saying, okay, there's high-profile people, celebrities, politicians connected to this billionaire pedophile, and we're just being told, forget about it, there's nothing to see here. And it's kind of hard, I think, for people to just go about their lives thinking that high-profile, powerful people might have been associated and maybe even involved with things like that, and then thinking they can just go about their normal lives. So I just wanted to offer that.
Derek, before we let you go, I'm curious. You said that you did this documentary and you've been investigating this story for a while. I'm curious your thoughts on, because I've heard people say there would have never been a list of the clients because that would have been too detrimental if it got out for anyone, so that there was no client list. What are your thoughts on that?
That is exactly true, and that's something I've been telling my listeners for years, that the idea that there was just some list that said Epstein client list sitting at the FBI or something, I think that was kind of a red herring that Trump threw out during the campaign. Now, of course, we do have Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book and Ghislaine Maxwell's Black Book, which, by the way, lists 16 numbers of Donald Trump. We have the flight logs. We have memos that talk about massages, and a lot of that information has never been released. So, I mean, technically, you could gather up all that information, you could get the names there and bring those people for questioning. It doesn't mean, of course, anybody in his Black Book is guilty, but there still is, if the FBI or anybody wanted to investigate it, that would be the place to start. But the idea that there's just some list sitting around, that's definitely false.
A few months back, I believe Wired magazine had done a search into phone locators that showed travel to and from the island and could pinpoint where the phones came from, and that these people, the residents basically, and then to the island. Do we know any more about that? They were doing that search. I don't know how far they went with it, but they had a good number of people that they were tracking through their cell phone locators. What do you know about that?
Yeah, I saw that reporting, and I think that is another great place to start, the people who visited the island. Of course, that doesn't necessarily prove guilt of anything, but, we don't know what investigations may still be ongoing, but according to the Trump DOJ, this is it. They're saying it's all done. There's going to be no further investigations, no further releases. So it just seems like, again, another thread that may never be pulled.
Hey, Derek, one quick question, and we'd love to have you on, so leave your number with our producers. But let me ask you this. How many young girls were victims of this guy, and why have none of them come forward and said, hey, I was one of the girls that was trafficked, and this is the person with whom I slept?
So we have had some of them come forward. You have Virginia Gouffre, who recently died allegedly of a suicide. There's some questions around that. You have Maria Farmer. There's some other women who have come forward, and even some of the women who were trafficked eventually ended up helping Epstein, like Sarah Ransom. And in some of those court testimonies, they did mention, seeing Bill Clinton, at a party or something like that. But I think the reason some of those details may have never come out outside of, say, podcasts or even these women's private conversations is because they were also sworn in some cases to secrecy through non-disclosure agreements. We know that Epstein originally, back when he was first arrested in 2005, he had a non-disclosure and a non-prosecution agreement. And actually, in Trump's first administration, when he had his labor secretary, Alexander Acosta, during his confirmation hearing, he was in Florida, and he was part of the original sweetheart deal, and he said that he was told that Epstein was intelligence, and so they couldn't go any further of it. So I think that's another reason why some people may be afraid to speak out.
Derek, thank you very much
so
for your thoughts on this. I do want to point out, though, the Justice Department does have the ability to void a non-disclosure agreement, so that can be taken care of in that situation. The important thing to remember is that there were young victims of this crime, and I think we get so caught up in the salaciousness of the story and what could happen that we forget that there are victims who were sexually trafficked and abused. We do know that much, I believe, from the information that we can officially say that.
And I think it's so disheartening to look at this just from another perspective, is that I think a lot of times women specifically feel when there is sexual abuse for any victim in these cases, it's disheartening to see something like this just be, blown away or, stopped and said, that's it.
Well, and you would think that, this happened as much as 10 and 20 years ago, some of this. So as you grow up, you grow older.
You get
hopefully
wiser.
You've had some therapy. Hopefully you've talked it through, and you're more willing to come forward. But we haven't seen a lot of that.
Well,
it's
I've heard
very
somewhere
hard.
numbers were around 250 girls that
That's
could
not,
have been.
you would think,
that's a lot.
You'd think 10% would come forward.
I did watch a documentary. I don't remember exactly, but when all of this came out, and it was so sad because a lot of these girls were very young.
Yeah.
And some of them, you didn't know who they were, in that they also wanted to keep their anonymity. And it's just one of those situations where it is really, really ugly situation, and you really hope that the people that can bring justice to these victims would bring justice to these victims.
Let's go back to the phone, 713-440-8870. Jay from Northwest Houston. Jay, what are you thinking?
Hey guys, I hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
And let me turn the radio down. Pick up my phone. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep. What do you have for us, Jay?
Yeah, I think the idea that folks in MAGA are going to be upset assumes that they get this information that we get on NPR at U of H or CNN, that they hear these discussions. They're not going to hear these discussions on that particular cable news channel, which shall go unnamed. They're just not going to hear these truths. And so I think the impact of these revelations will be minimal in terms of the current administration and the leader of the current administration, also whose name shall go unmentioned. I just don't see the impact that it's going to have on that particular political movement, and particularly because if we look at our president and the leadership of Congress, it's all about profit, politics, and power at this point.
Jay, let me jump in here and say, and I think, and that's the problem, I think, with the news across the board these days, is that concept of echo chambers. But what makes this story so unique is that the far right podcasts and reporting has been upset about this and is pulling back the curtain in these areas, which is what's making it so concerning, I believe, to the Trump administration, that it's coming from the right. The left seems to be standing by saying, see, we told you, while the right is saying, wait a minute, something's not right here. We were told. Because so much of that philosophy is built on protecting our children and family, to think that in that same silo, there could be this cancer spreading of this kind of abuse. I think that's part of what is so upsetting.
Interesting that Musk has really quieted down on this.
Well, it seems they all are quieting down
Yeah,
now.
I mean, something's going on.
And then Musk did get a huge government contract today of $200 million. I'm just saying. Okay, thank you very much for that, too. We were talking also about education and what was going on there. And quickly, we have Austin from University Heights on the Department of Education topic we were talking about earlier. Austin, what's on your mind? Austin, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I got you. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
So it's just real simple. I mean, I used to be a special education teacher as well, and we had a lot of classroom discussions, and faculty went on talks about this, but back in the 80s or 1980, when we departed from the Department of Education, we did need a central location to gather and store data. But now with the internet, people get their teacher plans off of Texas Teachers Pay Teachers and websites like that. With AI, do we need it anymore? Can a computer do it faster and better? That's all.
Good point, and thank you for sharing that with us.
And I think that there are a lot of questions around looking at agencies, government agencies in general, and seeing how they need to be more efficient and effective.
Remember, our phone lines are open for your thoughts and opinion on any of today's topics, 713-440-8870.
Coming up on Hello Houston, Houston public media reporter Sarah Grunau will join us to discuss the recent string of deaths at the Harris County Jail. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
Support comes from Moody Mansion, the restored 28,000 square foot mansion on Galveston's Broadway, furnished with original items and decor from the early 1900s. Open daily for tours. More at moodymansion.org.
Support comes from Baylor College of Medicine, creating tomorrow's medicine today. Known for their medical research and innovation, Baylor pushes boundaries through health discoveries and their pursuit to improve the health of humankind.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Houston Public Library Foundation, opening doors to discovery this summer through educational programs, books, and digital tools for everyone. More at HoustonLibraryFoundation.org. Support comes from Gulf Coast Blood, providing everything your group needs to save lives and make an impact in your community. Info on hosting a blood drive at your business, school, place of worship, or organization is at giveblood.org/hostablood-drive.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
A 62-year-old man died in the Harris County Jail last week after detention officials discovered him unresponsive on his mattress, according to the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Court records show Harold Alexander Jr. was arrested on a misdemeanor harassment charge and booked into the jail on June 25th. The Texas Rangers are investigating the death. The Sheriff's Office, which operates the jail, says it's investigating to determine if all procedures were followed. It's at least the 11th inmate death this year at a downtown Houston jail. Alex Giovanni Cardenas was also arrested for failing to appear in court for a decades-old traffic citation. He died last week after Sheriff's Office said he got into an altercation with detention officers who were escorting him out of the jail. The Texas Commission on Jail Standards is investigating to determine whether or not his death should be considered an in-custody death, since the Sheriff's Office says that the 23-year-old was being released.
32-year-old.
32-year-old, sorry about that. To tell us more is News 88.7 reporter Sarah Grunau. Hello, Sarah. What do we know about all this?
Hi.
And is this alarming?
Just to touch a little bit more about the circumstances surrounding Alex Jr.'s death. Right now, we don't have too many details surrounding his death. The sheriff's office has said that officers discovered him unresponsive on his mattress. He was taken to one of the jail clinics and pronounced dead just after 10:30 p.m. last Thursday. In Cardenas' death, another odd circumstance, the sheriff's office said that Cardenas, who was just 32 years old at the time, was involved in an altercation with detention officers as they were escorting him out of the jail. A detention officer deployed a stun gun at him, and he was discovered to not be breathing after the officers restrained him.
Wait, there was a stun gun involved?
Yeah, that's right. As they were escorting him out of the jail, it's not immediately clear if he was wearing handcuffs or anything at the time. But as he was being escorted out of the jail, he was involved in some sort of altercation. We don't have a whole lot of information about the altercation. And a stun gun was deployed at him before he was restrained by officers.
So, Sarah, according to the Texas Jail Commission, there have already been more deaths in jail this year than in all of 2024. What What is the sheriff's office saying? Is it just kind of one of those things where every incident seems to just be a unique one and they come in and unfortunately, there's some type of altercation. They unfortunately end up dying in custody or it's gray, and then there's an investigation. What are we seeing being done? Is it kind of that same pattern? And what can you tell us about these multiple deaths that have happened?
Yeah, it's really difficult to draw any sort of similarities, about the deaths that have happened in the jail this year. A lot of these autopsies have been in the works for months now. The sheriff's office has kind of maintained that deaths in the jail, though they're up one more than last year, the sheriff's office maintains that the deaths are trending down. The sheriff's office has also told me that the number of deaths in the jail has no direct bearing on its standing with the Texas Commission on Jail Standards, which is the only state regulatory agency for county and municipal jails in Texas. So we don't have a whole lot of information about the circumstances right now. Like I said, a lot of the autopsy reports have been pending for several months, and we have filed a couple public information requests to obtain those documents in the meantime.
Sarah, help clarify for me so I understand exactly what's going on here. As we reported, this is the 11th. There have been 11 inmate deaths so far this year. You're saying that they're saying that that's not a unique number. Celeste says that's more than all of last year combined. What is the average, and I hate to use the word acceptable amount of casualties of people in custody in the Harris County jail system on a yearly basis?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question.
That's a harder number to really pinpoint. Like I said, I've really been looking at jail deaths just in the past few years, and the sheriff's office has maintained that they have gone down. There is some discrepancy about whether or not Cardenas' death will be considered in custody. Like I mentioned, that incident, there's some discrepancy there because it's not exactly clear if he was in custody or not in custody at the time that he died as well.
So of the 11 deaths that have occurred so far this year, have most of them been natural or explainable to the degree that they weren't worth investigating, that some poor guy had a heart attack or an overdose or committed suicide or whatever it was? Is it just this last one or two that seems so weird?
I would say for most of the deaths in the jail that have happened this year, the sheriff's office does not provide a whole lot of information about them. They have said with most of these deaths this year that the inmate suffered some sort of medical emergency, usually inside of their jail cell. So we don't, like I said, we don't have a whole lot of information about how some of these people have died. I know that Christopher McGregor was one of the inmates who died earlier this year from complications associated with sepsis, a sepsis infection.
So quickly, so we understand, how many folks are in the jail system in Harris County that we understand what 11 means out of how many?
Yeah, so there are about I believe 9,000 people in custody in the jail at this time.
If we take this number of 11 and double it over for the year, let's just say, and so it becomes 22 at the end of this year, how would that compare to other regions, other counties, other jail systems across the country? Is that an outrageously high number out of 9,000 or 18,000 at the end of the year that would have been in custody?
Yeah, so some of the information that I've heard from the Harris County Sheriff's Office is that though, Harris County is a larger municipality, we have a large jail population in comparison with other municipalities around the country. The Sheriff's Office has claimed that, in cities of equal sizes, that the deaths in the jail in Harris County are lower than those of other municipalities.
Sarah Grunau is a reporter at Houston Public Media. You can find more of her reporting at houstonpublicmedia.org. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Associate Curator of the Menil Drawing Institute, Kelly Montana, and Houston-based artist Jillian Conrad about the Menil Drawing Institute's new art exhibition. This is News 88.7.
Hi, this is Matt Harrop. There's been a lot of news to cover in Houston over the last few months. Keep listening to Houston Public Media for the latest, and if you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV you don't need anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. The donation process is easy for you, and we'll pick up your vehicle in any condition. Here's how to get started. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thank you.
Even in a perfect scenario with perfect planning, protecting people from this kind of really intense flooding is very difficult. But at the same time, there are a range of actions that officials had developed over decades that don't seem to have been applied very well in this situation.
I'm Natalie Kitroeff. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
You can hear The Daily coming up tonight. It's on at 7 o'clock.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
UFOs have captured the imagination of filmmakers, science fiction writers, and everyday people.
One of the things that the UFO story has always been about has been asking questions about science and technology, and namely, are science and technology our doom, or are they our salvation?
Our fascination with these mysteries of the sky. That's next time on Think.
You can catch Think tonight at 10.
My name is Michael Lawson, Houston Market President of St. Luke's Health, a member of Common Spirit Health. Access to quality information is vital for healthy communities to thrive. That's why St. Luke's Health is a proud supporter of Houston Public Media.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
The Menil Drawing Institute's new art exhibition, What Drawing Can Be for Responses, features site-specific installations by 4 leading contemporary artists responding to the given prompt, what drawing can be. Each artist has an individual gallery space that explores the experimental potential of the medium of drawing, its boundaries, as well as its connection with other arts. Joining us now to tell us more is Houston-based artist Jillian Conrad and UH professor, and Kelly Montana, associate curator of the Menil Drawing Institute and co-curator of What Drawing Can Be for Responses. Kelly and Jillian, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thanks for having us.
So talk to us a little bit about what kind of sparked this type of exhibit and bringing 4 different artists together through drawing.
Sure, happy to. The Drawing Institute opened on the Menil Collection campus in 2018. And since that time, we've had the opportunity to talk to so many visitors, so many Houstonians, and so many artists about how they use drawing, what it means to them. And the conversations we've been having with artists over the years really revealed to us the vitality of drawing, but also they were talking about it in such surprising, mind-expanding ways that we thought we were long due to do an exhibition that looked to some of these more energetic and surprising ideas and unexpected methods of what drawing can take on.
So what are some of the unexpected methods?
Well, I mean, a lot of people don't understand that like Leonardo da Vinci was a great drawer. They think that, Michelangelo and Raphael and Sargent, I mean, it kind of goes on and on. Picasso, being a cubist, people think of a Picasso painting, and they don't realize that at 14, he was drawing somebody that looked exactly like the person looked, I mean, he was amazing. So as you're a drawer, I suppose, an artist who draws, Is
Not
that
exactly.
Well, tell me your role in this, Jillian.
Well, I am an artist, and I do teach here at U of H, and I teach in the sculpture department. And most of my work, I'm known through the world of sculpture, but with this exhibition, what drawing can be, my response to that was to ask really, like, what can it be? And in my work, I was considering how drawing could be something that's more than graphite or pencil lead on paper, that I could expand that, and I could consider that the substrate or the material that the drawing happens on could be actually space. It could be architecture, and that I could draw in space with materials and consider that a drawing.
See, that is fascinating because I would have never thought of that. And when you think of drawing, that's exactly right. I think of a graphite pencil and you put it together and you doodle, you think drawing, right? So what other, that's one of the components. What is another component that might look at drawing in a different way?
Well, I think oftentimes things that I think about are diagrams, maps, charts. Inside of the exhibition, what drawing can be, you'll see that even expanding to using charcoal as an actual physical object. You will see artists thinking about the vibrations and echoes around us and how do we visualize those lines sonically moving through space. You will see a pile of graphite again. So these materials that we transfer to paper being used in their physical amassed form. There's endless surprises.
So this may actually be repeating what you just said to some degree, but I'm curious, from the start of this project to where we are now, has your definition of what drawing is evolved and changed?
Absolutely. I think when I first came to the Drawing Institute, I was open. The Menil is, when you walk up to the main building, you see sculptures that are lines in the grass. So the Menil has this history of thinking about drawing in a very expansive way, and I was very open to it. And from being in Houston, I got to know Jillian's work really well, and it's one of those things that you talk to an artist you admire, and you think you have your drawing hat on, she has her sculpture hat on, and then somehow the things you're talking about, she's talking about materials moving through space. She's talking about lines as being points of maybe not necessarily physical connection, but points of like mental or emotional connection. And your mind just goes all of these places.
So Jillian, would drawing then be contact of one type of medium against another? Is that what drawing then becomes?
Yes, exactly.
So it doesn't matter what
I actually
the
think about exactly that drawing is the result, the trace, the evidence, what's left behind of when two materials come together in space and time. And so we're very familiar with thinking about pencil lead on paper as an example of that, and that absolutely is, or ink, and many other media. And I try and expand basically where the drawing happens to places and materials that go beyond paper, so beyond canvas.
Can you give us some examples of the materials that you use?
Yeah, so I would say my work in the show, there are a couple ways into it, but one of the main ways is to think about drawing as fueled by and as the result of desire. It's the desire to take something that's inside your head, your imagination, and bring it outside, or to transfer. A lot of my work in the show also relates to nature, so taking lines and ideas that I've seen like literally in trees, in constellations, and putting that, using myself as the kind of conduit or medium to put that into the exhibition, into the world. And so some of the materials I'm doing that with include chains, glass orbs, a net, a rose stick from a branch of a rose branch from my yard, and multiple other different materials. A piece of lead.
Beautiful.
So that kind of sculpture is one of the installations that we will see. What else will we see at this show?
We have a gallery by the artist Teresita Fernandez, where she's transformed the gallery into a kind of topological map made purely of charcoal.
Like that.
Absolutely. And charcoal, she has these islands that she's made of charcoal, which is scorched wood, but then she's drawn around it. So the senses, it's really a sensory experience. You see physical charcoal, you see charcoal drawings, but they're so much charcoal in that room, you smell it. You're really enveloped by it as well.
That is incredible. So where can people go? Obviously, the Menil Drawing Institute. And when does it run through?
The exhibition runs through the middle of August.
Okay.
The Menil Drawing Institute, I should say, is free. It's in the Montrose neighborhood. And we have a free public program that's happening Sunday, August 3rd at 3 p.m. that will be a curator's talk in the space to introduce you to all these installations.
And the Menil Drawing Institute is always there, full of wonderful drawing examples.
Absolutely.
Kelly Montana is the Associate Curator of the Menil Drawing Institute and co-curator of What Drawing Can Be for Responses, and Jillian Conrad is a Houston-based artist. Thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston. That was such an inspiring conversation. And coming up on Hello Houston, we'll continue diving into today's top stories. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Moody Center for the Arts, presenting the 2025 Summer Jam, with family-friendly art activities, galleries to explore, indoor farmers market, local food vendors, and more. July 19th from 12 to 5 p.m. More at moody.rice.edu.
Slight chance of showers this afternoon. It's 88. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston, News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we'll continue diving into today's top stories, including the latest numbers on ICE's immigration crackdown in the Houston area. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Ernie Manous. We'll also talk with the Greater Houston Disaster Alliance and the United Way about how they're preparing for this year's hurricane season.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. Plus, we'll also discuss how parents can protect their kids online and offline during the summer with Kerry McCracken, Executive Director of the Children's Assessment Center.
And we want to hear from you, so give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube on our channel. Just go to hellohouston.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Russian government warns that U.S. plans to send Ukraine weapons through NATO allies will likely prolong the war. NPR's Charles Maines reports on the Kremlin's reaction to the weapons sales and sanctions threats against Moscow that President Trump announced yesterday.
Trump approved the sale of U.S.-made missile defense systems in particular, amid growing frustration over repeat Russian drone and missile strikes on Ukrainian cities. Yet Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Ukraine would see the new arms deliveries, quote, not as a sign of peace, but a signal to continue the war. Peskov said Moscow remains committed to U.S.-brokered peace talks with Kyiv that have yielded humanitarian exchanges but made no progress towards a ceasefire. Peskov also noted Trump's threats to impose secondary sanctions and tariffs on Moscow in 50 days' time should Moscow fail to agree to a peace deal were directed at Russian President Vladimir Putin, adding it was up to Putin when and whether to respond. Charles Maines, NPR News, Moscow.
Officials in flood-stricken Kerr County, Texas, say they're planning to drain one or more lakes along the Guadalupe River in search of debris and human remains. More than 100 lives were lost to floods a couple weeks ago. NPR's Martin Costi has more from the town of Kerrville.
As the search and rescue effort in the Texas Hill Country transitions to recovery, attention is turning to what the July 4th flood may have buried in the small lakes formed by dams on the river. Ann Carr lives above Lake Ingram, and on Monday she told county commissioners about all the debris she saw flowing in.
We went out, we started seeing the lake rise, and as we did, we saw all kinds of things float by us. Propane tanks,
We know.
kitchen appliances, you name it.
County commissioners say they're concerned about man-made hazards in the lake, as well as the effort to find more of the roughly 100 people still unaccounted for. They say there's a plan to drain one or more lakes, but they wouldn't give details. Martin Costi, NPR News.
Legal experts are looking at the how behind the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to clear the way for the U.S. Department of Education to proceed with mass layoffs and dismantling. Georgetown University law professor Steve Vladeck examined the High Court's emergency applications. Says since April 4th, yesterday's ruling was the 15th time the Supreme Court has put on hold lower court rulings that had blocked President Trump's initiatives.
These were rare, that we would only get a handful of these kinds of rulings every term. We've seen a remarkable and unprecedented uptick in the volume since President Trump came to office in January and since many of his actions ran into trouble in the lower courts.
Professor Stephen Vladeck on NPR's Morning Edition. At last check on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 375 points. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. Houston area Democratic State Senator Carol Alvarado says congressional redistricting will be a key issue at a special session of the Texas legislature next week. Speaking on Hello Houston Monday, Alvarado says those topics alone will take most of the 30 days to get through.
I hope that people speak up and encourage the leadership to reach a compromise. Otherwise, we'll be back here for a second special session if these two men don't come to some sort of a compromise.
Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, both Republicans, differ on whether to regulate or ban THC products. A 62-year-old Houston man died in the Harris County Jail last week. News 88.7's Sarah Grunau says detention officers discovered him unresponsive on his mattress.
Medical personnel took Harold Alexander Jr. to the clinic just before 10 p.m. last Thursday, where he was pronounced dead. The incident marks the 11th in-custody death reported by the Sheriff's Office this year. The Texas Rangers are investigating the circumstances surrounding Alexander's death. He was originally booked into the jail on June 25th on a harassment charge. His death happened a few days after 32-year-old Alexis Cardenas died after he was involved in an altercation with detention officers escorting him out of the jail. The Texas Commission on Jail Standards is investigating to determine whether Cardenas' death is considered in custody. 10 people died in Harris County Jail custody last year. That was a decrease from 2023 when 19 people died, in 2022 when 27 people died. I'm Sarah Grunau, News 88.7.
Your look at weather, mostly sunny with a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high of 94 today, feeling like 107. Mostly clear tonight, 77 the low with a slight chance for showers. Right now, it's partly cloudy, 90 degrees on the UH campus. Get the whole story. Go to HoustonPublicMedia.org for more news and information. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
From Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Thanks for joining us.
We're back.
July 15th.
You know what I almost said?
Tuesday.
It's Friday. I don't know why I think it's Friday.
It's Tuesday.
I think I'm ready for the end of the week already.
Tuesday, July 15th, whether you're listening to us on your way to lunch, in your car,
odds.
on 88.7, or if you are watching us on YouTube, thanks for joining us today. We have another great packed second hour of Hello Houston.
Yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit more about disaster relief and what's going on in our area and how we're prepared for it, and different groups that have come together to help us out with that.
Which feels so timely given what we're seeing out in Central Texas.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a very interesting conversation.
And of course, this is a news story truly led by the weather, and we are led by our chief meteorologist.
Our weather department.
Yeah, I know, such as it is, right?
That is officially, Frank, for me, you are officially the weather department.
Oh, thanks. I'm going to put you in charge of desserts.
Oh, done. Okay.
I do have one pretty good storm in Liberty County, so watch out there. I know, right? Still waiting to see if that system off of Florida comes into the Gulf and develops. So a lot to watch. In the meantime, new figures released this morning reveal that the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that we know as ICE, arrested over 1,300 migrants in the Houston area in June alone. According to ICE, 1,361 people living in the Houston region were taken into custody last month after allegedly entering the U.S. illegally. ICE says many of those arrested either have prior criminal charges or past convictions. A bit of a breakdown of the alleged criminal backgrounds provided by ICE: 32 child predators, 9 murderers, 16 gang or cartel members, and a 56-year-old man convicted for hijacking an airplane. I know. Your thoughts on ICE's crackdown here in Houston? Call us 713-440-8870.
I hate to be the one to point out, but if they arrested 1,300 and only 58 seem to have criminal records, there's 1,242. Oh, you took the full actual number.
Yes.
Yeah. It seems like what did they do?
What did they do?
Yeah.
They showed up where they were probably maybe supposed to be, going to work, going to Home Depot, going to try to find work somewhere.
The argument being that if you are in this country, I don't want to say illegally because people aren't undocumented, that right there is the crime. But what the promise was that they were going after the worst of the worst, the most problem people that cause trouble. And if the worst of the worst are only 58 of them, who's the rest?
No, it's like they just want numbers so that at some point they can say, look how many people that we have deported, even though the large majority of them were people who were coming to this country for a better life and actually trying to contribute to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know that. I'm just winging it, but I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence of rapists and criminals and gang members and thieves and all of this. And even as you pointed out, Ernie, these numbers that's 1,302 people that were not accounted for as doing something horrendous.
Yeah, it's. I know that there was, I don't know if you say a memo or an edict. Something came out that said they needed to up the number of people that were being deported. That they needed more numbers, but just it touches so many lives, so many people in our own community. Now, undocumented should not be here unless there is a reason they came in. I think everyone would agree we need to have policies that are enforced in this country when you enter the country. But we have policies there that take into consideration the various reasons people are coming to our country, whether they're fleeing something in their country. There are laws, rules, and regulations, and it seems, again, to be a wider sweeping through of a group of people without taking the time to understand each case.
And they're taking these isolated incidences and criminalizing anybody that has come in undocumented. And it is, one of those things where we continue to look at this and, it
were there problems at the border? Yes. Is this the solution? I don't think it's
and we've seen at least I have seen correct me if I'm wrong, I've seen no breakdown of what countries from which these people came.
Mm-hmm.
How many came from Guatemala, Honduras, South Africa, Canada, Ireland? That would be helpful. But I don't think they take the time to find out where they're from. They just know they're not documented in the United States, and they send them to wherever. And in some cases, a country that they don't even speak the language.
We're curious your thoughts on what's going on with ICE in our own community here in Houston. Give us a call with your thoughts, your reactions. Maybe you've seen things or heard stories or want to share with us. 713-440-8870.
So something else happened that's very interesting. Elmo's X account, usually one of the platform's most wholesome, was hacked and used to post anti-Semitic and racist messages that Sesame Workshop called disgusting. Elmo. I know. Leave Elmo alone. He's already stressed out about his job as it is. One post Elmo published and immediately took down a post on X challenging President Donald Trump to Release the files. The post comes as FBI claimed there was no evidence that disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. This is a topic that we were talking about earlier, which you can join in. We did get a lot of calls about that at 713-440-8870. The so-called Epstein list had been a national topic during Trump's second term after Attorney General Pam Bondi had promised to release the documents months before federal agents debunked the idea. So Fox News confirmed rumors that Elmo was hacked.
Yes, when you say Elmo published it, it wasn't Elmo.
It was not
just
Elmo.
his account.
It
How
was
did Fox
just
know
his
that?
account. What are your thoughts on the Elmo hacking? Should they release the files? Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Leave Elmo out of this.
But how does Fox News know anything about hacking on X? I'm not sure even X knows how many people get
but you know
it's very obvious.
Sesame Warehouse. Why am I having trouble saying this? Sesame Workshop did not publish these things. The Elmo account is for them. It's an official account. If all of a sudden content is coming out that does not fit with Sesame Workshop, we know it was hacked.
Just so people,
Really?
Elmo is supposed
you know
to
that?
be...
You know it wasn't somebody who works for this workshop that's
But then
disgruntled?
that's hacking it, though. If they're not supposed to be putting his official Elmo statements out. Elmo is not real.
Elmo's not a real
Elmo is
person.
character.
So Elmo is a character. However, he is a very
brand.
beloved
Sure.
brand that's supposed to be like, I think, the age of a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old.
Okay.
And
So somebody's in charge. Somebody's in charge. It's not Elmo.
Right.
Somebody's in charge of the Elmo account.
Right.
And it got
Is
hacked.
it one person? Is it several people? Is it Sesame? Is it a whole
Workshop.
group? Who are these people?
Well, it's
Because
probably...
one of them may have turned. We never know.
But even if one did turn, it is not the policy or the
guarantee-
position of Sesame
guarantee you.
Workshop to be getting political with Elmo.
And let me tell you something.
Then why was it done?
If it...
So we would talk about it. Let's let Celeste talk.
Yeah, if it were if it was an actual employee that went rogue and posted those things, I think Sesame Workshop would immediately address it and say, this person has been let go. We absolutely do not stand by what this person has said.
Right.
It was hacked. I mean, a lot of people get hacked. I've said this before. I was the PTO president, which is the parent-teacher organization at my daughter's school. Our email, the PTO president email would get hacked, sending parents requests for money. So it happens all the time, and it's absolutely horrible.
Okay, but is it coincident that Musk has brought up the Epstein files and he also happens to own X? Is that a coincidence, or is that just a coincidence? Right? Oh, Elon Musk owns X.
So you're saying
Am I wrong?
Musk
Elon Musk owns X.
tweeted
Elon Musk
for Elmo?
Well, Elon Musk has said release the files, and now Elmo's saying release the files.
Yes,
so
but not the only thing Elmo said. Elmo also said some really horrendous things.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So it was not just...
So are we editing here? We're just putting...
Well, we're probably not allowed to say some
I don't want to repeat. He
Elmo,
said some
quote, unquote,
very
said.
anti-Semitic and racist messages that Sesame Workshop called disgusting.
Right.
Well, that's a shame.
That's my point. Leave Elmo out of this, dear.
Leave me out of it. Don't hack me. I'm not on X. Are you on X?
I do have an old account on there. Yeah,
I had an old account. I finally deleted it because I don't ever use it.
And that's something that we are going to be talking about later is safety. How to keep our kids internet safe. Elmo included.
We'll get to that, but yeah, I have something about that. But we have a few emails, or at least one.
Okay.
Quite a few.
Quite a few.
Who wants to?
Well, here's one. The man that committed crimes with Epstein, but only a woman went to jail! !
Well, Epstein did go to jail.
Trump will pardon her at the end of his term. Maybe.
That is an assumption I'm not sure about, but
Yes, but yes. Maxwell did go to... See, we always jump over her name because I just am still not sure how to say.
Is that her name?
Ghislaine Maxwell. She went to jail for it, but so did Epstein, but Epstein didn't make it.
Died. One way or another.
The point is that if you have these folks being convicted of this crime of trafficking these women, who are they trafficking them to? None of the quote unquote Johns have been named, and that's, I think, the big concern there. Thank you for that comment. Also, what else do we have on that? We have
It looks like pretty much the same text, actually.
Yes, it's the same text. But again, you can join the conversation. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. You can also text us or send us an email at talk@hellohouston.org. We have been covering multiple major headlines, and we enjoy receiving you. In fact, we have a call right now from Lamine. On one of our topics that Frank read about, which was the ICE raids that have been happening here, or I'm sorry, the latest information ICE has released on the numbers of people that they have picked up. Again, Lamine, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your comment or question?
Lamine, are you there? We'll try and get.
I'm here.
Oh, there
Can
you
hear
are.
me?
Thank you. Yes. Okay.
I said it's nice to be on your program, and thanks for taking my call.
No, thank you for joining us.
All right. I agree with your panelist. I think it was Ernie who specifically. Am I echoing here? Hold on a second.
We don't want to lose you now. You just said you agree with me. Yeah, I really want to hear what you have to say.
Might have been me.
Ernie who, it was Ernie who mentioned that people come to this country for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Most importantly, people come here because they're being persecuted, and they want, this is the land of the free, as we all know, and so therefore, immigration crackdown should be based on policies, specific policies, not politics.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall, just recently, President Trump, invited South African Caucasians because, according to him, they were not being treated fairly. Not only that they were persecuted, but they were not being treated fairly. Well, some of these people from Central America came here in escape of human trafficking, in escape of persecution. But again, we all know that the crackdown that is going on in this country right now is entirely based on politics and not policy. But again, as I always say, I'm a Democrat, but I am on the side of President Trump on this issue because the guy clearly campaigned on this. He said and explicitly indicated what exactly he was going to do when reelected. Mm-hmm. And you got to give the guy a break during this second term and put more responsibility on Americans, us. We who made this decision. We're the one validating these things. So, again, just to reiterate, during the first term, anybody could claim that I didn't know he was going to do this. But during this second term, we're going to have to give the guy a little bit of a break and then put some of the responsibility on ourselves.
Thank you, Lamine, for your question.
Lamine, if you're
comment.
If you're still on the fence on this, this is a Good Morning Houston text we got. My daughter called me a few weeks ago saying ICE agents with no uniforms raided Los Cucos Mexican restaurant in Pearland and took with them almost the entire kitchen staff, people who were working to feed their families. Has there been any change in ICE showing up at work sites in no uniforms? Is that legal? Sincerely, Yahya. So I understand that Trump ran on certain platforms, but I don't recall him running on a platform that he was going to take every immigrant in this country and ship them off that was undocumented. To me, I kept hearing that he was going to find the criminals, the gang leaders, the rapists, the murderers, and he was going to get the crime and the violence out of our society and ship those people off.
Mm-hmm.
But not the kitchen staff from Los Cucos.
Yeah. Our number here, 713-440-8870 for your thoughts, opinions, comments on these topics. Rob from downtown is on the line. Rob, what's on your mind?
Well, guys, I really enjoy the format and your somewhat new show. Glad to be on. I wanted to just cover two topics. One, we're talking about the undocumented and why are we not going after the corporate, the corporations who are hire them. There's, large corporations that run farms, meat packing plants, etc. And I don't see them on the news being arrested for hiring people that are undocumented. Second, there's been it's widely reported people are doing the right thing. They're showing up to their court hearings and doing everything they're supposed to do to become legal, or they have legal status, and they're being taken at that point in time to be detained and denied their due process to become U.S. citizens. So this is going beyond, I guess, enforcement to a point where it's very much racist in my point of view. And I don't know what I should do to protect myself as a fourth-generation Latino or Texan when I go to Home Depot. What documentation do I have on me besides a driver's license that shows I have some status here in this country? And that's just a driver's license. I don't carry my passport, nor do I carry my birth certificate with me. So I'll let you all ponder that, and curious to hear your thoughts. And again, enjoy the format, enjoy the show.
Well, Rob, thank you. I agree with Rob with everything he just said. And it is frightening that people of color especially feel like they have to have some sort of proof on them that they are an American citizen or legally here. But maybe they do. I don't know the answer to that.
And it stretches even further into now the challenges into birthright citizenship and what that's going to mean. And we've always believed if you're born in this country, no matter what, you are a U.S. citizen. And they are starting to question that, too, at higher levels in our government. Rob, thank you for your call. It's 713-440-8870. Matthew is on the line. Matthew's calling from Bel Air. What's on your mind?
Yes, I think that deportations they're mediocre at best. I think that there needs to be a lot more of them. I'm Ladino, and I feel like Trump is doing an okay job. But I would like to see him ramp up deportations even more, especially in Houston.
Matthew, let me ask you a quick question on that. We went through that number of 1,300 people, and then there was just a handful of those that could be identified as having some kind of criminal background and stuff. How do you think they should be determining who should be being deported?
I think that anyone who came here illegally at any time should be deported. Even if their kids are born here, they can't keep their kids here, and their kids have to go with them. They might be able to come back later.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Matthew. And for your thoughts, let's grab one more call quickly, 713-440-8870. Jeff is on the line calling from Galveston. Jeff, your point of view.
What I was wondering, I've never seen anything that shows how many people I picked up.
Jeff, we're having a little trouble hearing you there. If you can adjust for a second, see if that helps. Otherwise, we'll have to ask you to give a call back. Try again.
Yeah, no. Can you hear me now?
A little bit better, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I dropped my phone. I've not seen any figures from ICE on the people that are being picked up. How many of those were in the system seeking asylum and had been vetted by the prior administration that was canceled? So how many asylum seekers are included in this list that they're now calling undocumented?
Right. Jeff, to your point, we don't have any roster of anything. We don't know how many people are of color. We don't know what countries they're coming from. We don't know if they're white or black or brown, or we don't know if they're male or female. We don't know the age group. If there's a big list somewhere, I haven't seen it.
Right. To go back, though, also, and thank you for calling, Jeff, and for sharing that with you. And those were concerns Frank was bringing up a minute ago. It kind of goes back a little bit to Matthew's point of view. It's an all or nothing situation for some folks who believe they're here undocumented, get them out.
And I think
that's
that
where
is,
the buck ends there.
Again, the difference that President Trump said he was going to do. And to Lamin's point, he's doing what he said he was going to do. And this is not the first time he's been the president. This is the second time, and the American people voted for him.
Though, back to what Frank was saying a little earlier, though, is that he was saying we were going to get out the murderers and the rapists and all the bad of the bad, the worst of the worst. And it feels as though that's not what's happening, that it's a more wide swath of just anybody who's undocumented goes, no matter what the reasoning behind it is.
But also being swept up are people who are documented. They're just in the process of becoming citizens or green card holders or asylum seekers or whatever the case may be. And they're just being caught up in this and being sent out of the country for no good reason.
713-440-8870. Let's grab Jennifer real quick. Jennifer, what's on your mind?
Okay, I just wanted to say I love immigrants. My family came here in the 1600s. If we just had to eat our own cooking, it would be terrible. I love all the Mexican food, the Korean food. I love that our country is more dynamic and exciting and interesting because we have people from everywhere. Like, I think that's just a strength, and people are, getting a little cranky when they get middle-aged and stuff. And that's natural. But, it's awesome. Roll with it.
Jennifer, I think a lot of folks agree with your point of view that it brings color and variety to our communities and new flavors and experiences. The question that I think a lot of folks do have, and I'm curious just your thought on that, if there are folks that have not followed these systems in place, not that that's exactly what's happening here, but what should we do with folks that have found a porous border and are coming in and not following processes?
I think it really kind of depends. I mean, if the problem is sort of like a parking ticket, like you're in a place that you shouldn't be and you're not really hurting anything, but you're annoying, then let it be like a parking ticket. If the problem is you killed someone, yeah, that's serious. You need to do something serious about that. But we should not just assume that, all these millions of people are exactly the same and every single one of them is identical. They're all like little cookie cutters of each other. I mean, they're independent people just like we are.
Yep. Jennifer, thank you. Thank you for that. We're going to move on. 713-440-8870.
That's an interesting point what Jennifer was saying, that, we know for a fact, not even just somebody's opinion, but in general, we had Daniel Potter on from the Baker Institute and from Rice University. And one of the things that most Houstonians love about the city is the diversity and the diversity that this city brings. So again, we appreciate the conversation, the perspective. You can always join the conversation at 713-440-8870. And it was the Kinder Institute, not the Baker Institute. But coming up on Hello Houston, the Greater Houston Disaster Alliances, Diana Zarzuelo, and the United Way's Mary Vazquez talk about their mission to strengthen year-round disaster preparedness. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. Next time on The Middle, how dangerous are those 4 or 5 or more hours a day that kids are spending on social media?
The social media companies are targeting them to keep them online so they could show them another ad so they could make another penny. And it's wrong that we continue to let this happen.
What do you think about the safety of social media for kids? That's next time on The Middle.
You can hear it Thursday night at 8 p.m.
Houston Public Media is rooted in our community. We show up at school board meetings, city council votes, and neighborhood events.
That's how you stay informed about what's happening around you through deep local reporting that brings clarity and insight.
Your support powers this public service, so Greater Houston stays informed, connected, and safe.
Support local journalism right now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 888-909-0887.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More at texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Support comes from Holocaust Museum Houston, featuring Unveiled from the Vault, showcasing never-before-seen artifacts from the museum's collection. Viewing begins with opening reception on July 24th. Details at hmh.org. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Alley Theater, presenting Agatha Christie's The Mirror Cracked, a mystery where everyone becomes the suspect of a murder in a web of jealousy and hidden truths. Tickets and more at alleytheater.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
In 2023, the Greater Houston Disaster Alliance was formed, combining 35 years of disaster recovery experience between the Greater Houston Community Foundation and the United Way of Greater Houston. To accomplish its mission, the Alliance seeks to strengthen year-round disaster preparedness, as well as ensure that our region has the social services network and systems in place to respond rapidly and, most importantly, effectively during times of disaster. And joining us now to tell us more is Diana Zarzuelo, Vice President of Community Impact of Greater Houston Community Foundation, and Mary Vazquez, Vice President of Community Outreach for United Way of Greater Houston. Diana and Mary, thank you so much for being here and welcome to Hello Houston. Right off the bat, we're witnessing a historic crisis unfolding, and it's devastated Central Texas. As leaders in disaster response, what is your perspective on the scale and impact of this event?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's been really difficult to watch, I think, for everyone, and it's a truly tragic event. The impact and the scale of the floods in Central Texas, really we're beginning to see that emerging data come through, but the lives lost, it's just not calculable, right? And our hearts go out to all of the impacted families, including our own here in Houston. So it's 130 lives lost, 160 still missing. It's likely to be the deadliest inland flood in American history. Mm-hmm. And we were on the phone with FEMA yesterday. They're working really quickly. They have over 3,200 applications for assistance already in, so they're working to process all of that as quickly as possible. But it's important to understand the difference between relief and recovery. And right now we're still in that relief phase and just getting into immediate recovery. Mm-hmm. Relief is about that life-saving sort of basic needs, food, shelter, finding those that are still missing. It's to work to stabilize families, and all of that work is really, really critical. The recovery piece is where the Disaster Alliance really focuses, and then that year-round preparedness. That's where the rebuilding homes, rebuilding livelihoods and businesses, really getting that whole community on a path to recovery from an economic and emotional standpoint too. And that is a very long journey. It takes months and years. We've experienced that through many events here in Houston ourselves. So it's been really incredible to see the generosity, the outpouring of support, and that is really special to Texas and to Houston and the country. And so we just encourage everybody to think about that long haul and to be there for Central Texas, too.
It's so hard to be prepared for everything, but you are. I mean, you have to be ready for the worst disasters and the ones that you can't even imagine, right? So how do you go about that? What's your go-to plan?
Well, for us at United Way of Greater Houston, in addition to the great work that we do with the Greater Houston Disaster Alliance and in partnership with Greater Houston Community Foundation, we also operate our 211 Texas United Way Helpline, which is the single most largest helpline of its kind in Texas.
You said that really fast. I want to make sure our listeners get that. What was the title of this program?
211 Texas United Way Helpline.
211 Texas United Way Helpline.
You just dial 211?
Just dial 211. And we are there 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, answering calls for assistance from individuals in need. We answered 1.3 million connections last year. Wow. And since this tragedy unfolded, we have been there answering the calls for help. Over 900 individuals have called seeking assistance related to this disaster, primarily seeking assistance with basic needs, housing, food, financial assistance, how to report missing loved ones or to get reunification information. So we have been on the phone with those individuals providing that assistance. And so we do that in times of disaster and year-round. But primarily in our community, we are about also making sure individuals know how they should prepare in times of disaster. And so we do that in partnership with Greater Houston Community Foundation as part of our Disaster Alliance work. We ensure that we have a strong network of partners ready to help us in that endeavor.
When folks think about disaster relief and help from FEMA, oftentimes what you hear is complaints about red tape and the time it takes. Here we've got two big organizations coming together. How are you folks working to make sure that the resources get out into the hands of the people that need them more quickly and efficiently?
That is truly where philanthropy fills the gap. I mean, that's why this work is so important, because we make it easy for people to give really clearly to support and accelerate recovery. We do fill gaps where public resources aren't able to support certain kinds of families. And we know historically about half of those that apply get denied. So it's important for us to be here and be ready to receive donations, and then we are actively prepared and have the infrastructure in place to get those resources out as quickly as possible and effectively as possible. So we use data to target resources, because the resources are never enough, to the hardest hit, most vulnerable families.
And what lessons can you talk to us a little bit about that the Greater Houston Disaster Alliance has learned from past disasters right here in Harris County, in our Houston area? Because, we just had the anniversary of Hurricane Beryl, and that just passed. How have those natural disasters here in our area shaped your approach within your organization on how to be prepared?
Well, I think first and foremost, we formed the Disaster Alliance. The Greater Houston Disaster Alliance, we did not have standing infrastructure to do this work year-round. And so we received generous support from Enbridge and Phillips 66 to be able to have this collaborative partnership that works year-round. We now have staffing year-round to be able to do this and to do it well and learn from each disaster. So we're always now focused on preparedness, we're focused on recovery, and then on the resiliency work. And that has been made possible through this alliance. I think that's one thing that we've learned. We've also learned about how critical it is to have nonprofits ready to be the boots on the ground to help those individuals in need. And so we have vetted and convened over 100 different nonprofit partners that work with us, because we know it takes all of us to do this work. And so they are ready and standing by. Anytime there's a disaster, we can quickly activate this network of partners to get resources on the ground.
So you're sort of a neighbor-to-neighbor connecting group.
We are.
So I call you and say, I need this, and you say, Frank, here's where to get it, and try to hook me up, right? So that pretty much answers sort of what you do when somebody needs to help. What do you do to prepare in advance when it's so difficult to know what to prepare for?
It really is. So right now what we're doing is we're convening and putting on these disaster clinics. Through a grant through Verizon, we have disaster clinics in our community where we meet with neighbors to help them fill out their own household disaster preparedness plan. And we have a disaster preparedness plan that we are making available electronically, digitally, and in paper form, and encouraging our nonprofit network and our neighbors to start talking about preparedness now. And we have a QR code available that has the plan in all the disaster clinics that we can share with your audience, as well as you can find it at www.unitedwayhouston.org/disaster clinics.
I would just add, it's a collective problem that we all are a part of the solution.
Right.
So thank you all for having us here on the show to talk about this topic, because the data shows that only about 8% of Houstonians through Kinder's survey say that they're very well prepared for the next disaster.
8%.
8%. And that's a 2024 survey. So we have a lot of work to do. And the work is at all levels across all sectors. And it starts with the individuals and the families and the neighborhoods and city and county leaders and working across sectors, which is why the Alliance exists. I mean, we're here for the philanthropic and nonprofit sector, that social infrastructure that's really needed, because the reality is government resources are only so fast and they only can do so much. And so it really takes a collective approach.
I'm assuming the Disaster Alliance coordinates with local officials and with FEMA, and so that we're hitting different segments, different areas. What do you think are the lessons other communities can take from the work you're doing? And especially when they talk about defunding or dismantling FEMA at different levels, other communities are going to have to pick up some of the slack. What can you teach them from your experiences?
Yeah, we've been honestly on calls with colleagues, community foundations and United Ways, answering that question. And I do think here in Houston, we have something special because we have this strategic partnership. We've just had so many disasters. And we've learned a ton. I think what makes Houston a potential national model is that we are centralizing resources to make it as easily accessible as possible. So when we think about not just being fast and accelerating recovery, we're also trying to make that as seamless as possible. We have another partner called Connective. It's another nonprofit that is focused on disaster recovery and resiliency year-round. And they have the tech solution that enables a single place for folks to go and then apply for whether it's financial assistance or home repair and then get matched to a nonprofit partner. That is not common across the country. It's not also common for a community foundation or United Way to be hand in hand, to be like, for donors and funders, hey, this is the place you can give, versus having 5-10 different places that you can give. So we are coordinated and we are collaborating with these various partners, which make us unique.
So if you had to guess, you say 92% of people really aren't prepared. So do you think it's that they're apathetic and they just don't care, or do you think it's unaffordable? And where's the disconnect there?
I think it's the belief that it's not going to hit me.
The apathy of it's not going to hit me, and
not that I don't care. It's just I can't even imagine this disaster is going to hit me, so I don't need to be that prepared.
Well, you were there when we had 60 inches of rain too.
I know, but
it's a little bit of all of that. Honestly, some of us have prepared before and it hasn't hit us, and so we do develop this apathy towards it. Others, it is, we know in our community that individuals don't have $400 saved for an emergency. So therefore, it's really difficult for them to develop a go bag that has those critical supplies should they have to hunker down or should they have to evacuate. So we're trying to make sure that we help them secure those items to be ready and to think through what is it that I need to be able to be prepared. We know that for every dollar that we invest in preparedness, it saves $6 in future recovery cost. So that's a significant
That is very
stat.
interesting. And you also mentioned $400. Talk to me a little bit more about that $400, because now I'm intrigued, because I know personally as the stories, and I've said this on the show multiple times, as these stories unfold and we look at first-hand accounts coming out of what happened over 4th of July, it is heartbreaking, and it also has brought so much awareness about being prepared. And I read one specific story in the Texas Monthly, and afterwards I told Dan, I said, I don't know, should we keep, life jackets in our garage? And you mentioned $400. I want to know more about that.
Sure. The 2024 Kinder Institute Houston area survey found that 46% of individuals in our community do not have $400 saved for an emergency at all. And so that is a significant number of individuals that are living paycheck to paycheck, only covering the basic needs and not being able to invest in that rainy day fund for themselves.
A Social Security check to Social Security. We had an interesting comment on YouTube. Is there any specific outreach efforts for apartment communities? They seem to be at the mercy of apartment owners during the recovery phase, and also senior living facilities.
We definitely are looking at targeting all communities, and so we want to make sure that this disaster plan is available digitally, and we're trying to get it out to any of our partners that have connections with those folks. Certainly we can connect with the Houston Apartment Association or other networks of that nature to make sure that it gets broadly distributed, because it is an issue where you're right. I think we saw that during Hurricane Harvey, where so many apartment complexes were affected and there was no place for individuals to relocate because the vacancies, there was, all of the units were occupied or damaged. And so we are always having to think about that group of neighbors as well, and making sure that we do a targeted outreach to those communities.
Well, I know that I can't tell you how many people would call me and say, I spent this money on a hurricane kit getting ready, and we didn't have a hurricane. And that was part of my Social Security check. So that kind of resource and what you're providing is really necessary.
And the other flip side of that is, you mentioned that the high percentage of people that can't afford, $400 for that rainy rainy day fund. But what about somebody that says, hey, you know what? I can afford that, and I would like to support when disaster hits. I want to be able to support my neighbor and give confidently, because also something else that we're seeing is so many little mom and pop fundraisers were coming up, and people want to give. We know that people want to support our communities, but we also want to make sure that it's going to the right person.
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell for people that say, hey, you guys are doing great work. How can we support our neighbors during times of need?
If you are wanting to focus on helping people rebuild that recovery piece, we hope that you give through the Disaster Alliance. We are aggregating those resources. We have the trusted relationships with nonprofit partners who we know they're vetted. They are effective. We've seen them perform time and again. So we hope that everyone considers us that trusted sort of go-to place from a philanthropic standpoint. There are other great organizations that are doing immediate relief work, the Houston Food Bank, the American Red Cross, Baker Ripley, all of those, and those are places to give as well. And of course, we encourage to give directly to a nonprofit partner if you have a relationship there. But if you're looking for a place to give, the Disaster Alliance is the place for Houston.
That's right. Diana Zarzuelo is the Vice President of Community Impact for Greater Houston Community Foundation, and Mary Vazquez is the Vice President of Community Outreach for United Way of Greater Houston. Thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston. Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll discuss how you can protect your kids online and offline during the summer. I know mine are at home. So stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
I'm Josh Adams, the new General Manager of Houston Public Media, and we are here for one reason, you. I'm thrilled to lead this remarkable team dedicated to our mission of informing, educating, and inspiring everyone in the greater Houston area. And yes, these are challenging times, but together we'll meet them head on with bold ideas, honest reporting, and stories that matter. Houston Public Media is your public media. Together, let's make it incredible.
It's one thing to love public radio, but it's a special thing to support it. Consider this. If you've got a car you don't need anymore, or you've got one that's simply too expensive to repair, you can arrange to donate it to Houston Public Media. We take any kind of vehicle in any condition. It's easy for you, pickup is free, and it could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. Visit houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. And thanks.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TV 8.6. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World helps us understand the movements, conflicts, and cultures that connect us all. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Support comes from GiveMeTheVIN.com. Purchasing vehicles in minutes with the VIN or license plate, or by bringing the vehicle to Houston area offices. Details at GiveMeTheVIN.com.
Support comes from Berkman International, providing insights into workplace dynamics and individual needs to help organizations develop talent, improve communication, strengthen retention, and drive innovation. More at Berkman.com/connect.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
All right, summer break is a time of freedom and fun for millions of kids, but while the season can create many memorable experiences for kids, it's also important to remember that this time of year also comes with quite a few risks. Given how large a role technology plays in a child's life in today's digital age, too much unsupervised screen time, are you listening to that?
I am.
Increases the risk of children falling victim to online exploitation. Same for adults.
Yes.
I know, but depending on a child's family situation, some might be left home alone for an extended amount of time, which can be concerning for both the child and their parents. So joining us to tell us more about how we can protect our kids online and offline during the summer is Kerry McCracken, Executive Director of the Children's Assessment Center, a nonprofit committed to child safety and abuse prevention. Kerry, welcome to Hello Houston. That's quite a challenge you've got on your hands here.
Indeed. Thank you so much for having me today. And it's an important topic. And so, to bring awareness to it is really important. So thank you.
Now, Kerry, as a parent, I've got to say, I think it is just a known fact, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but nowadays it's pretty across the board. Everybody can agree that you have to monitor kids' number one, screen time, and also YouTube or the different types of outlets that they're watching different programs on. Is when parents are looking at ways to monitor those outlets and those different types of apps and things, what are some of the things, easy things parents can do right off the bat that they might not have already thought of?
Well, I loved Frank's intro where he said unsupervised time on the screen or with your phone being the biggest danger. So the bottom line is supervised. And, this is very old school, but you've got to talk to your kids all the time. You have to ask them what they're looking at. You have to be aware of what they're looking at. They shouldn't be communicating with people that they've never met, that you know nothing about. It really starts with communication. Parents tell me all the time, I really must respect my child's privacy. This is very important. But at the end of the day, we adults, all adults in the community are protectors of all children in the community. And I appreciate wanting to be friends with your child and wanting to have that relationship where you feel or they feel like you trust them and that you're not micromanaging them. But that just doesn't work, to be honest.
Yeah,
you have to you've got to be a parent.
Kerry, I would think that the biggest challenge in all of this is I'm seeing adults, people that I think are clever and swift, getting sucked into scams. I can't even imagine the challenges then for younger folks who maybe haven't had the experience and the understanding, and even for parents to be able to monitor all of this, because what's going on out there is getting so much more sophisticated, so much more quickly. What can we be doing?
Again, ask your kids who they're talking to. Be aware of other signs, because a lot of those, it's grooming, to be honest.
Right.
A lot of perpetrators will form a relationship with your child. They may meet them through a video game or some other means, and they start chatting a lot more often before they actually become predatory. So what they'll do is they'll ask them to send pictures. We've all heard about that. They'll ask them personal things. They become their friends. Like, oh, you're mad at your mom because she wouldn't let you go to the mall today. Well, my mom's, that as well. They'll pretend to be people that they're not. So you just got to keep talking to your kids. If your kids, every time you walk in the room, go like this or put their phone down or hide it or something like that, that indicates they have something to hide. Make sure that they know that there are scammers out there. We hear it all the time that a perpetrator will connect with a child online or whatever and threaten to tell their parent that they did this or that. Unfortunately, now they're even creating computer-generated images where they'll get your child's very innocent photo off of Facebook or something and put it on some other image, send it back to that child and say, if you don't, get me your parents' credit card or get me money or something like
I've
that.
heard of that. I actually, there's a story about that in Dallas.
Kerry, we all grew up with don't talk to strangers, and that seems like the rule of the 60s and 70s, and you just didn't talk to strangers. Why is that simple advice to our children not being heard or enforced the way it should be?
Because the predators they're becoming friends. They become friends before they start making that child feel comfortable or making them meet them somewhere. And again,
well, then we need a new phrase, like if you make a friend online, I want to meet them or something.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So they pretend to be somebody they're not. So, 45-year-old Bill is actually, is saying that he's actually, 15-year-old Tiffany or something like that. So they gain the trust. So those children think that they're a trusted person in their life. So they're not strangers in that stranger danger scenario at that point.
But how do you stop that before? it becomes that. I mean, you can't tell your children not to make friends.
Supervisory. She said supervising.
Right, but it's like they're going to interact with other kids online, they assume.
Right.
And we don't know who those other kids are either. Is there just, there shouldn't be online friendships? Should you stop at that point?
Well, it certainly shouldn't escalate to provocative photos.
Absolutely.
It should not escalate to meeting somewhere if, again, the parent doesn't know who this person is. There certainly are chat rooms where kids are having healthy discussions. And unfortunately, yes, it's difficult to know going in which is which. That's why I said it's very important to talk to your kids about what they're chatting about, who they're chatting with, and where those chats are going. Again, are they asking you to send photos? Are they asking you personal information? Are they asking you where you live, where you go to school, anything like that? If it escalates beyond that, they need to know that. And again, to rewind a little bit, what I was saying about the scams, or what you asked about the scams, 9 times out of 10, too, when that perpetrator is saying, send me money right now, or I'm going to do this or that, expose you to the world, kill your dog. Those people 9 times out of 10 are in a different country. So literally sitting down with your kids and saying, they're going to tell you not to come to me, but if something like this is happening in your world, if somebody is threatening you, must come to us. Just letting them know that just as much information as they can.
Kerry McCracken, as an expert in this field, I did have a question for you. I'm going to ask it that I think that would be extremely helpful for parents, and we will post it on our Instagram with your answer, so be sure to look out on our Instagram. Kerry McCracken is the Executive Director of the Children's Assessment Center. Kerry, thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for listening to Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media.
Support Houston Public Media by donating a vehicle you no longer need. We'll take it in any condition. It's free to you, easy to do, and it could mean hundreds of dollars in support. Visit Houston Public